Hey guys, in this video we're going to talk about matter. Specifically, we're going to talk about elements and compounds, and then we're also going to take a look at organic molecules and compare those to inorganic molecules. So first, let's talk about matter. Matter is anything that takes up space and then also has mass, which is just about everything on the planet, on the earth. Okay? It is solids, it is liquids, and then it is gases. Those are all examples of matter. It's you, me, okay? It's your pen or your pencil. It's the air that you're walking through as you walk down the hallway. That is all examples of matter. All right, so matter is divided into these different categories, these different little parts, these different specific types of matter, which we call elements. Okay? Elements are substances in their purest form. Elements are substances in their purest form. They're pure substances. They have these specific properties to them. They might be shiny, like a metal, okay, or dull. They might be solids or gases or liquids. Okay, they may be radioactive. These are all examples of elements, and they all have their own individual specific properties. Okay, so let's take a look at these elements, and we arrange all these elements, and we list all these elements on this table, which we call the periodic table of the elements. And you may have seen a periodic table before. On this table, it lists all of the elements that we know of, that we know about, that we have discovered. A lot of them you're familiar with. We have hydrogen right here. The hydrogen is a gas. Carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, those are all gases. Helium, okay, which is obviously the gas you put in balloons and make balloons float. Neon, that's the gas that we put in neon lights, okay, that make the neon lights light up. Okay, those are all examples of gases. Other elements that you're familiar with, we have silver, which is a metal, gold, another metal, aluminum, another metal, iron, another metal. So these are all metals that you're familiar with. Some other things you've heard about: potassium, find potassium in bananas. Sodium, find that in salt. Okay. Calcium, you all know that you got to get your calcium in your milk to keep your bones strong and healthy. So these are all examples of elements, okay? Substances in their purest form. There are all these substances, all these elements on the periodic table. They're arranged in this table in a specific way based upon their properties. And when you get into 8th grade, you'll learn more about the individual properties of each element and why this table is arranged the way it is. But it's arranged based upon their specific properties. Okay, so elements, substances in their purest form. Now, you probably noticed from that periodic table that all of these elements, it didn't necessarily list the full name of the element, but provided an abbreviation. We call that a chemical symbol. It's a shorthand way of representing the elements. Okay, so for example, hydrogen, right here, hydrogen. We should just use a capital H to represent hydrogen. Pretty simple. Sometimes we have element names that kind of overlap, or they have the same first letter, so we have to add an extra letter. So for example, AU here for gold, we add an extra letter in order to differentiate between two elements that maybe start off the same. If it does have a second letter, the second letter is going to be lowercase. So the first letter is capital, and then the second letter is lowercase in our chemical symbol. And there are even some elements that have 3 letters in their symbol. So the first letter is capital and the second 2 letters are lowercase. Now, sometimes you find that the element symbol, the chemical symbol, is different than the beginning of the element name. So for example, I have AU for gold, and you're like, hey, that's gold, shouldn't it be GO? Well, again, sometimes those element names and those abbreviations overlap. So we take the element symbol, the chemical symbol, from the element's Latin name. Okay, so Arium is gold in Latin, and then we use those first 2 letters, AU, for its chemical symbol. So if you find a chemical symbol that doesn't really match the element name, it's because the chemical symbol comes from the element's Latin name. All right. So here are two examples. We have gold, Au, arium, and then Al, which is aluminum. And Al makes sense. Again, you got the Al and aluminum. And then we have some other information on these little symbols right here, such as the atomic number and the atomic mass. And you'll get into all that atomic number and atomic mass stuff when you get to 8th grade and study this a little bit more closely. But it provides all the information about the specific properties of these particular elements. Now, compounds are a combination of elements, okay? They are made up of more than one element, okay? So, for example, CO2, which is carbon dioxide. C is carbon, O is oxygen. If I take a carbon and I put it together with an oxygen, I get carbon dioxide, okay? Others that you have heard of, we have, okay, for example, Na, which is sodium, and then Cl, which is chlorine. NaCl. Okay, sodium chloride, we call that salt. All right, so you can see there I have two elements and I put them together. Most of the things that you come in contact with are actually compounds. You are a compound. You're composed of many different elements. Okay, now a lot of times when we take elements and we put them together, we take those elements and we put them together, their properties change as a compound. So here we have sodium. Sodium is actually a soft silvery metal, highly reactive when it hits water, will explode when it hits water. Okay, that's sodium. Chlorine is a green poisonous gas. So if I take a soft silvery metal and I mix that together, I combine that with a green poisonous gas, I get right here salt. Table salt. We put it on our food. It's harmless. We actually have to have it in our bodies in order to help us survive. Okay? So compounds, their properties are often very different than their element parts. Now, we have two basic categories of compounds. We have inorganic compounds and organic compounds. So let's talk about inorganic compounds first. Inorganic compounds are not made by living organisms and do not contain the element carbon. Okay? So inorganic compounds, not from living things. In actually means not. So it's not organic. Inorganic. Not coming from living things and does not contain the element carbon. So we'll look at water. Here's water. H2O. You're familiar with that. Water. Hydrogen and oxygen. Does not contain carbon. Okay, it has a hydrogen element and an oxygen element. It doesn't contain carbon. Those are inorganic. Okay, no carbon, and you'll see this from my next little slide here. No carbon. Okay, these are inorganic. Okay, inorganic. No carbon, doesn't come from living things. Okay, and I say living things. Could be plants, could be animals. Okay, now let's also look at organic compounds. Organic compounds, okay, do come from living things, okay, and do contain carbon. So made by living things do have carbon. Okay, so here, for example, we've got carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, nucleic acids. These are all examples of organic compounds. Okay, fats come from animals. Okay, can also come from plants. Those are lipids. Those are organic compounds. Carbohydrates, you find them in grain, which is wheat, which is a plant. Okay, comes from living things. Okay, that is an organic compound. Proteins are in meats. Okay, meats, obviously muscle tissue of living organisms. And then nucleic acids, we also find those in living organisms. So we can go through a whole list of different compounds that have carbon in them. You know, if I say C2H12O6, okay, that's an organic compound. Why do I know it's an organic compound? Because it contains carbon. Okay, carbon is in there, so it's organic. So inorganic does not contain carbon, does not come from living things, and then organic compounds do contain carbon and do come from living things. All right, so I hope you find this video helpful. Again, pause, rewind, go back and watch again if you need to.